Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Katie Weaver Show. This is Katie. I'm your host. It's Halloween! And we are live. It's about 11 a.m. Pacific time, and I am so happy to be here. So, as always, welcome to the show. If you are in the chat room or if you are over here in the live stream, I want to welcome you. If you're listening or watching an archive or a replay, welcome to you also. Happy Halloween. I want to let you know I am over in the chat room, and you can find that by heading over to 12radio.com. Click on the chat button, and you'll be redirected into the Facebook chat. Or you can come onto the live stream, and you'll find that on YouTube or Facebook, Katie Weaver, Domestic Mystic, and we're streaming there too. So come see me. And of course, I have eyes on all of the chat rooms. So if you're commenting on the live stream, I should see that. Or if you're commenting in the chat room, I should see that as well. There's all the housekeeping. So obviously, it's Halloween, and I am dressed up as well. Myself, essentially. Do you like my hat? Isn't this cute? I bought this at a fair. Well, actually, Scott bought this for me at a fair last year. Um, when we go to fairs, Scott is always kind of keeping an eye on the other vendors. And if he sees somebody that's like not selling anything, acting like they're not having a good fair, he'll usually go buy something from them to try to boost them up. Yeah. And there was a girl selling these hats, and she wasn't selling a lot. They were pretty expensive, but look how cool they are. So, anyway, he went over and bought me a hat because it was the right thing to do. And I love it. So, it's perfect. I have seriously been tempted to just wear this like all the time, just all winter long, just because. I've seriously thought about it. But I also have guests today. So I brought Bruno. Bruno, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah. So Bruno is dressed, as you can see, as T-I double G. That's right. Tigger. You know, his tops are filled out of rubber, or made out of rubber, and his bottoms are made out of spring. He's bouncy, trouncy, bouncy, trouncy, fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful thing about Tigger is he's the only one. And I am telling you, look at the back. Look at the little tail running down his back. I'm telling you, since the minute I put this on him, he was running around the house acting totally wild, and it absolutely killed me. So he had to come show you his costume. And I'm going to trade out for Rico. Now, Rico is, let's see if I can get his little hood up here. Rico obviously is dressed as a bunny rabbit. His costume says Snuggle Bunny, but we're trying not to say that because he wanted to be more like a scary haunted bunny like Bunnicula or something like that. And I watched him fighting Nellie a few minutes ago with all of his teeth out, and he really did look like Bunnicula. So here's Rico. The other two dogs' feelings are very hurt because I don't have any costumes big enough for them. It's obviously time to go to the store because I have nothing for either of them. Very rude. Right? Rico is your man, Sheila, right? He's the coolest. Yes. So, anyway, Rico can't walk in his costume. Rico can't do clothes. Cannot. And it's really too bad because he freezes to death all the time. He has some super cool hoodies, but anytime you put clothes on him, he walks sideways. He just sometimes just like flattens himself down to the ground and just can't move at all. He simply can't do it. So, not happening. But I had to also show you my witchy pendant. Look how cool this is. Christy and I were shopping not too long ago at a local rock shop, and they had a huge bowl of these labradorite pendants, like enormous ones. Isn't that beautiful? I've always wanted a really big one, so here we go. I thought it was perfect for my witchy costume, so here we are. Yes, Bruno definitely could still bounce like Tigger in his costume. Before the show, I went and fetched him off the couch where he was, I don't know if he was trying to rub the costume off, that may have been it, but he was also, leaping around from couch to couch doing kind of a parkour thing, you know, and acting like a total crazy guy. Yeah, so he definitely could. However, we took it off because the other dogs are acting a little bit like he was a plaything. Probably not the best, for his safety and wellness. Yes. So I just wanted to have a fun show and talk about Halloween and memories and fun. And I do have some, more traditional Halloweeny things to talk about as well. Were you guys able to attend yesterday? Kelly organized an absolutely lights out Halloween production yesterday. We had, I think, 5 or 6 shows, and they were all so freaking good. I was on the witches panel. I was the historical witch on the panel. My name was Goody Weaver, as you can imagine. And I, of course, was hanged back in 1693, I believe, for being a witch. Now, you might have, in learning about the Salem witch trials, learned that nobody tried there was really a witch, but that really wasn't true. I was a witch. That was my whole persona. I'm going to share one thing with you. If you watched it yesterday, then or heard it yesterday, then you already heard this, but I'm going to share it anyway for a few things. I'm hoping, Jane, that they're going to be archived. It sounds like maybe they would be, so that you guys could go back and listen to them. Yeah, they were a lot of fun. So I'm going to tell you a few things about Goody Weaver, just in case you don't know. This was the persona that I took on yesterday. Goody Weaver was a witch. She was very mischievous. She was constantly in trouble for doing, mischievous things. She also was well known for being an herbalist. And what did she do? Well, she made a virility verdant elixir. That's what it was called. This was for men that were not long in the wood, as you would say, or that needed a little bit of help. Well, I'm just going to read you some of her taglines, okay? For gentlemen with wilted willies, Goody Weaver's elixir will have you standing at attention in no time. They say a drop of Goody's elixir puts the pep in everyone's step, if you catch my drift. It's like nature's little secret, bottled by Goody Weaver, the virility verdant elixir, because even Salem's finest deserve a bit more wood in their cabin. A sip of this elixir, and you'll be so full of life, they'll think you've been dancing with the devil himself. Don't be a limp leaf on the Salem tree of love. Try Goody Weaver's elixir and watch your love life blossom. The virility verdant elixir. It's like nature's way of telling you it's time to grow a little closer to the ground. If you've been cursed with a case of soft soled shoes, Goody's elixir is the perfect remedy to put a spring back in your step. You won't need a magic wand to perform wonders in the bedroom, just a sip of Goody Weaver's elixir. And those were just all reviews, of course, from happy customers. Not real, all just tongue in cheek. Just lots of fun. Now, Goody Weaver she had a lot of mischievous plans in place when they were talking about hanging her. She put them in place just in case. All of these spells were set to initiate at the moment that her spirit left her body. And some of these still plague Salem today. So let's talk about it. First, the spell of the wandering brooms. The incantation was whisk and whirl, take to the sky, brooms of Salem, let's really fly. It causes brooms to come to life and start flying on their own, right out of shopkeepers' hands, right out of women's cabins, brooms everywhere, doing whatever they want. And it was quite a sight to see men running down the street trying to grab a broom. Sometimes it proved to be useful when brooms would come flying out of people's hands and do the work for them. But either way, flying brooms, it emoted a bit of fear in people who were terrified of witches. Secondly, the giggling toadstool hex. Toads and toadstools, laughter's delight, spread mirth and chaos throughout the night. It turns toadstools into giggling, mischievous creatures that leap and bounce around, leaving a trail of laughter in their wake. It should have been a trail of laughter, but for these folks who were so afraid of witches and witchcraft, it actually created so much terror. Goody was just trying to have fun. But every now and again, if you're in the woods, some time around or somewhere around Salem, you just might see a toadstool leap to life and start dancing around. The slippery cobblestone curse. Cobblestones and cobbles so neat, let every step end in a comical feat. This spell caused the cobblestone streets of Salem to become slippery and unsteady, making everyone who walked on them in danger of slipping, falling, or even just dancing about trying to stay afoot. And even now, every once in a while in the area of Salem, you'll see the cobblestones suddenly become as slick as ice, while unsuspecting people are just trying to walk across them. Particularly bad for men in penny loafers for some reason. It's the actual worst. The feathered hat trick. Feathers, hats, and laughters ring. Let's make these townsfolk dance and sing. This effect, without notice, caused whimsical, oversized feather hats to appear on the heads of unsuspecting townsfolk. And when they did, they would dance and dance and dance and laugh and laugh and laugh, and there was nothing they could do about it. And again, even now, often on the 31st of October, in Salem and roundabouts, you'll see people's hats grow 10 sizes on their heads and see them break into dance and mirth and abject horror as they can't seem to stop. And lastly, the sweet tooth spell. And this is the spell that has continued to haunt Salem and actually spread throughout the United States. Sweets and treats, oh so divine, make Salem crave sugar all the time. It caused the entire town to be consumed by an insatiable desire for sweets. It's caused a lot of trouble over the years. People fighting in the street over a single piece of candy, people robbing the bakers and the candy makers, people breaking into other people's homes just for a little bite of cake. And to this day, the people of Salem still have an insatiable urge for sugar. All thanks to Goody Weaver. Pamela said, the cobblestones got me one time after having a few wharf rats at a local pub. Well, those were the spells that I cast on Salem when I was hung. So now you know. It's all just in good fun. That was my character. There was a lot more on the witches panel. Of course, we had Glinda the Good Witch, who was played by Erin Carrere, who did a marvelous job. We had a modern witch, Miss Chrisanne Morgan. So nice to hear her voice and get to collab with her. And of course, we had Kelly, who was a world class famous journalist who was interviewing us and made sure that we remembered that she is a famous journalist. And it was awesome. So there you go. That's a bit of the Halloween fun that we had, but make sure you go find it once it's archived because we had a ball. But lots of other really good things too. So there you go. All right. Just jumping into the other chat room here quick. So, what I would really like, I would love to hear some of your favorite Halloween memories as a kid, big or small. I just want to hear them. And also, did you celebrate Halloween or did you not? Did you go trick or treating or no? What did Halloween look like at your house when you were a kid? I just, I want to hear your memories. So, I'm going to share a few of mine. I put a couple of these on Facebook, but when I was a kid, our elementary school had a Halloween carnival. And our schools around here don't do them anymore. They do a fall carnival because some people object so much to Halloween. Uh, but when I was a kid, it was a Halloween carnival. And it was usually on Halloween or right about the time of Halloween. And you had to have a little money because you would buy tickets. And then you'd take tickets, and every classroom was set up with some different game, like maybe bobbing for apples, or maybe a ring toss, or maybe, you know, a two-legged race or three-legged race. Two-legged is fine. Uh, just lots of things like that. Lots of things for kids to do, and you'd give them your little ticket, and then you'd win some little prize, or a piece of candy or something. Everybody was in costumes, moms and dads and teachers and the PTA and everyone helping. And in the gym, there was always a chili dinner. So it was always like chili and rolls and something like green jello and a piece of cake. And we loved it. We loved it. The Halloween carnival was the event to be at. We loved it. And it usually happened right after school so that then you were free to go trick or treating. And I really remember how much I loved the cakewalk. That was my favorite because if you won a whole cake or a whole plate of cupcakes. When I was a kid, getting a bakery cake was unheard of. That was expensive. My parents didn't have the money for those kinds of things typically. They would My mom always made our cakes, and that was fine. She was a good cook, but to have a bakery cake, that was a huge treat. That was a really special treat. And so I can remember in the cakewalk winning. And then there's just like a whole table of cakes and cupcakes and stuff laid out, and you get to pick. So I can really remember getting to pick out a bakery cake to take home to share, and how much I loved that, how exciting that was. I also remember that my dad loved Halloween. I mean, he loved Halloween like Scott loves Halloween. Except for Scott does more like creative stuff. He just liked to scare people. Loved it. He liked that when it wasn't Halloween, to be honest. He was quite the prankster. But one year he set up a Halloween scene on the deck, and I was the ghost girl. He made a cardboard coffin that I had to lay in on the deck, and my face was painted all white with dark circles and red lips, and anyone that would get close to me, then I had to sit up and do the thing and scare them. And we did that the whole night. I about froze to death because Halloween in Idaho. I think our high today is 42. And it was that cold then too. I about froze to death. I was in this like light green sateen nightgown because it looked more like what I thought the ghost girl would wear. I didn't think she'd be wearing a snowsuit. And so I nearly froze to death, but we had a lot of fun. But my dad And he had 2 things that Halloween he liked. He either liked to take the chain off of his chainsaw and wait around the corner of the house until the trick-or-treaters started walking away, and then he'd fire that up and chase them to the next house. Yeah. Imagine that happening. He did it all the time. And then his other favorite, you guys, this is awful. You're gonna think my dad was the craziest person in the world. But he was a hunter, remember where I live. And he usually had his deer by then. And the deer would hang in the garage until it was ready to be taken to the butcher, or sometimes he did it himself. Well, uh, my mom was really keen on just paying someone else to do it because, ugh, awful. But anyway, so he would cut a leg off of the deer. So we'd have this deer hanging in the garage. He had a big full beard. And so he'd take a bunch of fake blood and put in his beard and on his face, and he'd be dressed like a hunter. So my mom would have to tell the trick or treaters that she couldn't give them their candy until they said hello to the crazy guy in the garage. And then she'd flip up the garage door, and here's this psychopath with, sitting on a stool in front of that dead deer, pretending to eat a deer leg with all this blood on him. And when they saw him, and of course, panicked, then he'd fire up the chainsaw and chase him to the next house. Yeah, yeah. Our poor neighbors. They were probably like, "Don't go to the Brower's house because they're crazy." But it was usually something along those lines. I grew up in a college town, and when we were kids, the college kids a lot of times would dress up and trick or treat. And now it's such a weird people get so weird about if people are too old to trick or treat or allowed to trick or treat or whatever. But when I was a kid, everybody, and the college kids did too, and it wasn't a thing. But they were the ones that he particularly loved to scare and chase through the neighborhood. He'd laugh about it until he was just sick. He'd tell stories about it for weeks, about this one kid that he touched with the chainsaw on his leg, or, you know, things of that nature. But this is how I grew up. One year, we Christy was working at our local family crisis center. Family crisis center was and is a domestic violence center. They have a shelter and, of course, help the you know people in our community that are undergoing domestic violence or whatever, sexual assault, whatever needs they have. And my mom and I were both working as volunteers there as well as victims advocates. So you'd pack the phone. So on the weekends or at night, you'd be on call. And if there was a domestic violence incident, and it was a 3-county spread, so it was a lot of area, 4-county spread. So if there was a domestic violence incident or a sexual assault, the police would call us and we would meet them on scene to be there as an advocate to help the victims. So you might be going to someone's home, you might be going to the hospital. Sometimes you went to the police station. It just depended on the situation. And when we went, or when we were doing it, the shelter was an old house in our town that had been donated that needed some work. And one of the things it really needed was new windows. It had really old windows. Heating it was costing the Family Crisis Center a fortune that they didn't have. So we had this brilliant idea. What if we put on a spook alley and all of the proceeds go to the Family Crisis Center to put new windows in? Seems legit, right? So we found an old building that was set to be torn down. So they didn't care what we did with it. It was, in hindsight, really not very safe, but it was creepy as hell, so it worked. I and we set up. We called it CSI Rexburg, like the show, and we set up all of the different rooms as a different crime scene, and it was scary and so much fun. So we got local volunteers from the college and from the high school and, just people in the community that love Halloween as much as us and wanted to participate. We ran for 3 weekends, and one of the things we did was a plane crash. This was really fun. My dad had a friend who had an actual crashed plane who let us use it. And this building was huge and had garage doors, so they were actually able to bring this plane in and set it up. And so one of the scenes, as you walked through this big open expansive room, it was very, very dark, and the only light was from the flashlight of the guide, and it was like we had taped cellophane over them so that it was kind of red. And then we had people that would reenact a plane crash. And part of that was as the plane landed, my dad had gotten talked to one of his customers who was like a munitions guy, and he had made him a whole bunch of charges, like a little tiny bomb, kind of like a cannon, not a bomb, a cannon. And so as the supposed plane crashed, he'd set off the cannon, and I mean it rocked that building. And it would scare the absolute hell out of people. And, he would do it like a billion times a night as people came through, and he loved it. Anyway, CSI Rexburg, we had a morgue, we had like some living room type scenes, we had a jail. It was so fun. We had an absolute riot doing that. The local police helped us quite a bit. They even loaned us some crime scene tape that we had to promise would all be returned to them, even if it was in pieces. And so we had to be really careful and roll it all back up and give it back because they weren't supposed to let us use it, I guess. I don't know. In hindsight, you could just buy that now. Then it was not really, there wasn't an Amazon. But that's one of my favorite Halloween memories. It was hard work and took a ton of time from all of us for weeks and weeks, but my god, did we have fun doing that. So, those are a few of mine. We've had a lot of Halloween fun over the years, but those are a few of the things I was thinking of. Lillian said we walked all over McLean, Virginia with my little gang in the 50s. Those were the days when we could walk around anywhere by ourselves. Me too. When I was a kid, we'd walk all over this town. We'd go everywhere. And because you really wanted to go up on the hill where the rich houses were, because, first of all, a lot of the dentists gave away toys or toothbrushes and stuff like that instead of candy. There were people up there that gave away dollar bills. They used to, our local grocery store, Albertsons, you used to could buy, maybe you still can, gift certificates from them or like little tickets for a donut. So some people would just give you this little piece of paper that you could then take back into Albertsons anytime and trade it in for a glazed donut. And you were thrilled if you got one of those. Then, of course, you'd have to nag your mother to pieces in the next few days to take you to Albertsons to get your damn donut. But that was a big deal. And some people up there gave full size candy bars, yo. Yeah. But us too, Lillian, there was, this town was, at least we assumed, was so safe. Tara said, my kids aren't getting that all of my costumes were homemade when I was a kid. It's so much more fun when you get to be creative. One year, my friend and I went as an old couple. I was the man. Oh, I love that. That's so much fun. One year, my parents went as each other to a Halloween party, and my dad had blown up balloons, for the boobs, and they kept popping. And every time they would pop, he would scream and yelp like he was being killed. And it was hilarious. They couldn't even get out the door because I don't know what kind of janky ass balloons he bought, but he couldn't keep them from popping. Pamela said, safe neighborhood long ago. Pillowcase for candy. Oh, yeah. Before snack size candy bars. No curfew. Nirvana, right? Lillian said I was usually a gypsy. So was I. So was I. I remember lots of years. I was usually either a witch or a gypsy. I've always been really drawn, and I know that term is problematic, and I understand that. Uh, but that was, I didn't understand until I was an adult and had my, looked a little bit further into my DNA and then into my genealogy. Actually, it was one of my cousins that brought this info to me that in the 1800s in England, I our ancestors were, uh, I don't know if they were Romani. I don't believe they were, but they were what they would have called gypsies. They were a traveling family that traveled around and sold things and were nomadic throughout the UK. I think that's probably where my great love of and interest in and fascination with the Romanis come from. That's what I think. But me too, Lillian. I can remember one time buying a skirt. So our local thrift store is called Deseret Industries. It's a Mormon church thing. They have all of these Deseret Industries that are thrift stores, and they use them as job training facilities. And so it used to really be here people that were disabled typically would work at DI or at Desert Industries because there was a job there for them. That's not necessarily the case now, but that's kind of how. Well, it kind of is, but people take all their stuff there and donate it, and then they sort it and clean it and price it and sell it. We have other thrift stores now, but that was what you had when I was a kid. And we would walk down to DI with our few bucks and with an idea of what we wanted to be for Halloween. And we would frequently buy something there and come home and make it into something. And I remember really clearly this teal skirt. I bought this long, like clear to the floor kind of layered skirt. And then I bought a bunch of sequins, like the big mirror sequins. And I can't even think how many days after school watching TV and sewing all of those sequins onto that skirt. But by the time I was done, the entire skirt was covered in all of these little mirrored sequins. And I loved it. I wore it multiple years with my gypsy costume. I love it. Pamela said that's a way to save on candy, right? Just chase the trick or treaters away. You don't have to give them anything. Oh, yeah. If you wanted to do a Halloween thing, we were all roped in. I mean, that's just how it was. Laurie said, we always had a Halloween bazaar at the school near my grandmother's house, which I looked forward to every year. They always had a cakewalk, and I won it a few times and did get a whole cake. Damn right. You hand a kid a whole cake? That's like magic, man. Mhm. Sometimes people would sneak in things like Rice Krispie treats or brownies. Bitch, get out of here with that. Cake. This is a cakewalk. I have opinions. Sid said, one year I dressed up for work as the waitress on the American Graffiti poster, including roller skates. The funniest part was we all went out for lunch and I skated around to the salad bar. That's awesome. Sherry said, my kids still point out the house that gives out the full size candy bars. Well, you'll never forget that. No, of course not. Lillian said her pillowcase would end up so full she could barely carry it. Oh, interesting. Tara said her dad's family was transient. Yeah, not so distant from me. Wow. Jane said we moved into our big haunted house in South Jersey from a three-room row in South Philly on Halloween 1965. Super safe hood. Went as many nowadays consider inappropriate or politically incorrect costumes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. Sid said years before store dog costumes, I made a pumpkin hat for my dog. It was cute but tricky without a pattern. Oh no, Kev has some Halloween hijinks happening. He lost his keys and is locked out of the apartment. He said he's watching kids from the elementary school exit with their uniforms. So damn cute. Oh, fun. Pamela said, I went to a card reading class this week and we all dressed up as gypsies. We looked gorgeous. Oh, how fun. I love it. Jane said, Mom made and gave out marshmallows Crispies for years. We used to go inside homes for cookies, cupcakes, and ciders. Yeah, back when that was a thing, right? My grandma, towards, the end of her life, she would always make popcorn balls. That was a big deal. She'd make her famous, like, caramel popcorn balls. It was a big deal for her to make them. That was her tradition. And the last, maybe 5 or so years, that was kinda when people got all freaked out about it only can be store-bought candy, store-bought treats. So the trick-or-treaters would come, and we didn't get very many on this street. We don't get any now, but we used to get a few, but not a lot. She lived across the street from me, and so she would have all of her popcorn balls, and then she'd also have some regular candy, and nobody would take her popcorn balls except for, like, family, and it would hurt her feelings. Yeah, we all had to eat the hell out of her popcorn balls and tell her how amazing they were. By the way, they were amazing. Kinda makes me wanna make some. Uh, but, oh, good lord, she felt bad about people not wanting her popcorn balls. Lillian said, "If I was Halloweening tonight, I'd paint myself orange and comb over my hair." Oh, dear. Kev said, "Isn't it crazy that most of our childhood costumes are probably mostly all non-PC?" Well, yeah, and the first, real store-bought costumes, I can still smell those just thinking about it. Remember them? The masks and the plastic, and good lord, we probably all nearly died from some kind of, like, fume inhalation from wearing those. Right? Getting a popcorn ball was the height of Halloween, if they were good. My grandma's were soft. They were nice and soft, they wouldn't tear up your mouth. I can remember getting some that were as hard as a rock, and you basically kinda have to just pound them into pieces to eat them. Hard no. Yeah. Right? What about apple bobbing? What was the matter with a billion kids putting their whole faces and snotty noses into the same pail of water to get an apple out? What was wrong with that? Not anymore, I'll tell you that. I like the apples on a string. The bobbing I couldn't do. The apples on a string though, so that you weren't like, you know, saliva. Let me jump into the other chat quick. Denise says, "My cousin worked at a three-story haunted house this past weekend. He was locating a group that got lost, stood in the hall as they were walking to him, and the ladies screamed when they ran into him. One was patting his chest, arms, and shoulders, started crying, and said, 'I don't know what it is, but it's huge.' He's 6'5" and very wide shouldered. Ended up with a cleanup in aisle 10. Oh no. Oh dear. Oh, oh, I love it. We had a haunted forest here when I was a teenager that was amazing. They were so it was down on the river, and you'd go through at night, of course. It was a thing that you would walk through, so you'd walk along the river, and there were different, spooks and scary things to see, and mostly it was manned by people in costumes and stuff, so they'd, jump out and scare you and, chase you with a chainsaw. That was a theme. And they even would have a headless horseman on a horse that was terrifying. But we'd go to the haunted forest every year. When you'd wait in line around a giant bonfire, and sometimes you'd wait in line for hours to go in. And you'd pay your money, and you'd walk all the way through the haunted forest and all the haunts, or run. It was actually really freaking scary. Some of it was the forest. Some of it they'd have like little structures and buildings that you'd have to walk through, and it was terrifying. And we loved it. And one time we were walking through, and I was like, I don't know, maybe 15ish. And, I used to be tiny and cute, tiny. And, before life really hit me. But we're walking through, and this giant gorilla jumps down from there was like an arch, a structure thing you had to walk through. And this giant gorilla jumped down from that right in front of us, grabbed me, threw me over his shoulder, and ran away. And I'm screaming, and it scared my mom so bad that she fully peed her pants. I always think about that. It's a well-known fact in our family that we all have. We haven't been known for having strong bladders, but anyway, I have always laughed so hard about that. But there was another haunted house that they used to do. There was an old school that was it was closed for several years, like condemned, and then it was torn down. But while it was still standing, they would put on a spook alley in that was super scary. It was a 3-story school. There was a ton of different rooms and things to see. And we went one time with my aunt and uncle, and my aunt had her stepson with her that was like mm, about 10. And there was a couple of rooms or like a hallway that you'd have to walk through, and you were running when you got to it from something chasing you. And they had mattresses on the floor. So you hit those mattresses and you can't walk. I mean, you can, but walking across a mattress is hard. So we got to those mattresses, and there was a spook chasing us, and my aunt fell on the mattresses, and her stepson is screaming, running over top of her, also kind of trying to pull her to her feet, and pulled her shirt right off of her. When we emerged to the other side of the mattress room, he had her shirt in his hand, and she's standing there in her bra. And she's basically fighting this kid. I'm dead even thinking about it. Fighting this kid to get her shirt back from him and get it on. Yeah, that's a fan favorite. Oh, so funny. Laurie said my mom would always make homemade costumes for my brother and me. One year she dressed me up as Raggedy Andy and my little brother up as Raggedy Ann. Full makeup and everything. Oh, I love it. That's so fun. My cousin Natalie would make homemade costumes for her kids, and her kids and my kids are about the same age. And I'm telling you, she put everybody to shame. But she would make all of these amazing costumes, and she just had a huge costume bin. And if your kid needed a costume, she had it. And she was super generous with them. I can remember, oh my gosh, beautiful things she would make her kids. Very talented, like a seamstress. I can do lots of things, but sewing, I can sew. I just don't like to sew. By the way, look at this cup I made myself. I don't make me stuff very often, but isn't that pretty? Love it. That is a pee your pants story, Pamela, for sure. That's why people in my family have such weak bladders, because so many funny things happen to us. Sid said it's really sad how even in the 60s, safety was a concern. And now some towns only do organized trick or treats or, yeah, trunk or treats. Yeah, for sure. Kev said, I hate that getting the black licorice candies. Oh, yeah. As a young adult, a costume was me dressed up as a priest with a giant letter A made out of cardboard hanging from my waist. Oh, no. I was a priest screaming, oh, fucking A. Oh, them younger drunken years. Oh, gosh. Jessica said, finally made it. Well, Jessica, welcome. Let me check the other chat room quick. I don't want to neglect you guys. When my nephew Jack was little, he was the cutest little thing you have ever seen. Big blue eyes, his blonde hair. He was so damn cute that, he was just one of those kids. And trick or treating was super special to this kid. He loved it. But when he was like 2 or 3 ish, we took him out trick or treating and we couldn't get him to say trick or treat. He would only say, I love you. And so every house we took him up to, somebody comes to the door, hi, kids. And they hold out their basket, and little Jack goes, I love you. And it was so cute and funny. And the responses from people, from like big burly men to little grandmas, was like, oh, well, thank you, honey. I love you too. Oh my God. He killed us that year. Every house we went to, and sometimes more than once, he would say, I love you to all these people. Oh, I love it. It was very sweet. Cute, cute, cute. Well, that's some of my Halloween mirth. Uh, oh, my cousin had pointed out to me when I posted about this on Facebook today, thinking about some of our Halloween fun. Uh, my dad was a barber, and he would dress up every year. Both of my parents always dressed up for Halloween. My mom was a teacher, an elementary teacher. So my dad is a barber. He would always dress up, and he had a costume that he wore for a few years that, oh boy, his dad was a very big man, very big man. So my dad borrowed a pair of his overalls. He was an old farmer. You know how the old farmers would wear the denim overalls, you know? So he would always that's all he ever wore. And so my dad borrowed a pair of those. And he just made my mom help him wrestle 2 bed pillows down the back of those so that he had this enormous butt, like the funniest big butt you have ever seen. And then he put one in the front too, so he'd have his big belly, but the big butt was the funniest thing. And then he would take he was mostly bald, but he had, like a fringe of hair. And so he took some gel and like kind of flipped his hair up into these little curls and had a clown mask thing on, and my god, he was hysterical. And he wore that all day to cut hair for like 10 hours in this enormous costume with the giant pillow butt. And everybody had to go over to the barber shop and see him. And it was just hysterical. Like family members, everybody knew go see Kenny on Halloween because he's going to be dressed up and it's going to be funny. But that costume, I just laugh so hard every time I even think about it. The butt. I also wondered what he told his dad. I gotta borrow these overalls so I can, dress up like a big fat guy. Right. Lillian, you are already an honorary member. What are you talking about? Kev said, no, I'd die if he was to cut my hair, right? In the clown suit. Yeah. Sid says, I always loved the metal hook fasteners on overalls, but going potty was a real pain. Yeah. Yeah. But these big rotund guys with big round bellies that have a hard time holding up pants, it's a good option. You'll see a lot less of their butt that way. Mm-hmm. Oh, yikes. So you can see where my love of Halloween comes from because this is what I was raised in. So we are going to Kara's tonight for Halloween. We always go to her house because we don't get any trick or treaters, which is sad considering, how much we decorate for Halloween. But we don't get trick or treaters on our street at all. And mostly it's because of trunk or treats. That just really took over our town when my kids were little. And so people go to their church. Usually they do it in their congregation. So they all meet in their church parking lot and they decorate their trunks and they flip up their trunk of their minivans and decorate them, and everybody wears costumes and the kids just walk around the parking lot from one car to the next collecting their candy. Your kids get a shit ton of candy, like way more candy than any kid ever needs. It's a fun social event, but it's nothing like trick or treating was when we were kids at all. That to me. Hmm. So we didn't always do the trunk or treat, partly because they got too much candy, an insane amount of candy. Uh, you know, Like, what do you do with all of that candy? There's no way in hell you can let your kids eat all of that. And so I was kind of lukewarm on the trunk or treats. But then if you tried to just trick or treat like a regular kid, a lot of people would tell you, "Oh, honey, we don't have any candy. We gave it all away at the trunk or treat." Oh, so we gave up on my town and we just started trick or treating at my sister Kara's house because her neighborhood does trick or treating and they get a lot of trick or treaters. So instead, we go to her house and we fight each other every time someone rings the doorbell to go and, you know, trunk or treat or to go, trick or treat the kids. So who knows? Maybe we'll sneak something scary down to her house to put in her yard. We did that last year. It was pretty great. We put a ghost in her yard that was terrifying. But we usually just order food and play cards and just have fun. So that's what we're going to do for Halloween because, we're too old to do anything else. We did for a few years go to a club type situation, and we were like the oldest people there, and it wasn't really that fun. We had more fun on our own. And yes, I'm going to go just like this. Well, I'll take off my headset. Other than that, yeah. Pamela doesn't either. She said none of the neighbors have their lights on, so they don't bother to come down the street for one house. It's sad. Agreed. Want to see all these cute little shits in their costumes? You bet. And I wanted to be the house that, any kid could come to and they would get something. If we got trick or treaters, can tell you right now, Scott would 3D print until his little fingers fell off to have something cool to give every kid that came here, but they don't. So we don't. It occurred to me that I don't have any candy at all. And that always scares me because what if, like, I get two or three kids, stranger things have happened, and then I would have nothing. So when I get off of this show, I'm going to run to the store and buy a bag of candy just in case. Because that would be so awful. I'd be giving them money, man. Money, crystals. I could give them crystals, right? I'd be dragging out anything I could think of. I would be horrified if you had kids come to the door that you didn't have anything for. My God, that would be awful. And Trishy, you too? You got to run get candy? You probably get kids. I'll bet you do where you live. That seems like a neighborhood where kids would trick or treat. Yeah. Oh, Tara said she's expecting more trick or treaters because there are more houses decorated this year. Oh, good. Jessica said our little town only has about a 5 to 6 block of our street that does trick or treat. It's crazy how the whole town is on the street. Police and fire block it off. Oh, that's fun. Trishy's thinking Costco. I'll bet, because I'll bet you get a bunch of kids. Yeah. I'm amazed by some of you guys that get like three, four, 500. A guy I went to high school with, he lives in Montana, and his neighborhood, they get somewhere between 400 and 600 trick or treaters in one night. There must be a line at every door. Jessica said, my kids would love crystals. Oh, so mine would have too. Yeah. You could always, if you're only going to get a handful of kids, you could always just give them all $1 too. That's probably what I would do but you never know. What if you didn't have any cash? All these things. All these things I'm worrying about. Yeah. But Costco's a good thought. See, I'm thinking, you know, one little bag. Because what I'll do is I'll have it ready and then I'll just put it in a bowl and put it on the steps so that if anyone does come here, there is candy for them. But the last few years I've done that and come home and the whole bowl was still there. Now, some people have said, what if one kid empties the whole bowl into their bag? And my answer was, more power to him. We don't need or want it. So if somebody takes all our candy, please do. Just don't damage our Halloween decorations. Really, that's all I care about. I don't need any tricks around here. I'm the trickster. And Scott, he can be a trickster too. I'll let him have that. But we're the only ones, God damn it. Well, that's pretty much it for today. I do want to tell you Luminous came out about an hour and a half ago, 2.5 hours now, probably. And it's got a lot of Halloween stuff in it, including in my tips, ways to honor your ancestors. And it's a big, long infographic. You'll have to blow it up. But lots of good ways to think about honoring your ancestors because that's part of what this time of year is all about. So be sure that you do that. Lillian said your yard would scare them away. That hanging skeleton, right? Oh yeah, the mermaid out there. Whew, I'm scared of it. Jane said Robin Williams, San Francisco Seacliff Hood gets hundreds of kids from all over the Bay Area. They give out big candy and decorate crazy mad. Oh, that's so fun. I love that. Tara said I scolded a kid for emptying an unattended bowl at the trunk or treat on Saturday. I couldn't believe it. She didn't even care, just kept on dumping it out. Oh man. Yeah, I get it. At an event like that, definitely no, because there's lots of kids that are there for candy. Yeah, Tiffany's gearing up. She's supposed to have hundreds. Yep, she's got 2 enormous bags of Kirkland, Costco candy. So there you go, Trish. Follow her lead. You're gonna need it. All righty, you guys. Oh, Sybil said in Helena, she gets 400 to 500 kids. Oh my gosh. Sybil, I'll be right over. That sounds like so much fun. Yeah, I would love it. It would be the only reason I'd want to live more in town because for the most part, I want to live further out of town. We lived in the country when we bought this house, and now we don't. But Jessica, did you miss seeing the mermaid? Oh gosh. Well, I think I still have a picture of it. Oh, maybe I don't. Oh, maybe it was a video. Oh, I think I deleted that too. Well, hell. Yeah. Yes, you did. Actually, if you just go look on my regular Facebook page, I posted it there. But yeah, it was a scary, rotting mermaid corpse that Scott made. So, ew. All righty, guys, I'm going to go before we get cut off. So, thanks for being here. Don't forget, I am a professional psychic advisor over on one2listen.com. We're on sale for an insanely good price. This is our Halloween treat this year. So come see me this afternoon if you need anything at all. You know I'm there every single day, 24, well, not 24/7, 365, and 24, well, no. Anyway, I can't do the math right now. Remember that I went to school in Idaho, where all they taught us was the one potato, two potato song. Alrighty, guys. Well, come find me at One Two Listen. Have a safe and fun Halloween. Please let your hair down and do something fun. You deserve to enjoy. Life's hard as it is. Let's find reasons to laugh. This has been yet another production of The Katie Weaver Show here on One Two Radio, where we're changing the way you listen to the world.